Well, that was the initial part of the Skill India mission ceremony that's being held in Vigyan Bhavan at this very point of time. The Prime Minister there, a whole galaxy of stalwarts there, virtually the entire Union Cabinet, the Army Chief, the Defence Services Chiefs there, and Skills Minister Rajiv Pratap Rudy laying out a sort of ambitious roadmap for the skill development mission and the various elements. And we just also heard S. Ramadorai, the chairman of the NSDC, talking about several of the challenges and also underlining the fact that the political leadership that is being provided to this mission is extremely important, and that is what is going to perhaps make a difference. We have a whole galaxy of guests joining us today to discuss this mission, and we'll also be coming back to the event that is underway at Vigyan Bhavan right now as soon as the Prime Minister begins speaking. For now, I'm joined by two guests, Anindya Mallick, Senior Director at Deloitte India, and Ajay Goyal, Executive Vice President, Skill Development at Wadhwani Foundations, and several other guests who will be coming on shortly. Let me come to you, Anindya, first for your broad response right now as far as the direction of this movement that it seems to be taking. We've also speaking at a time when the NIIT Aayog, a sub-panel, a committee under the NIIT Aayog is looking at a right to skill program. Are we going in the right direction? Anindya Mallick, that question goes to you first.
Yes, we are definitely going in the right direction, because as you know, the demographic profile of the country, it requires employment to be created as well as entrepreneurship options to be given to our youth so that they are gainfully employed and they can make a livelihood so that their aspirations and their future is taken care of. So everything definitely skilling them in having adequate economic opportunities is very important, and I think this with the skill policy and the skill mission rightly addresses that.
We heard a very important point which I think has not received the attention that it should have. For instance, when Rajiv Pratap Rudy said that as many as 12,000 ITIs across India have been transferred and congregated under the skills ministry. Remember, this was a ministry which till some time back didn't even have an office, and we now see 12,000 ITIs coming under it, and hopefully we would expect that the skills ministry itself will have the skill set to manage these ITIs which have suffered for quite some time on account of lack of direction and not necessarily investment. Ajay Goyal, how large is the challenge that India faces? We have the government giving us numbers, and we have heard those numbers, and there's also a very ambitious target of skilling, teaching 400 odd million people, and what Rajiv Pratap Rudy said in some ways, making sure that a retired Sipahi gets converted into a skiller, in not just teachers, but India needs skillers. These are some of the very sort of eye-catching terms that are being thrown at us. But tell us very quickly, what do you make of it?
I think we are on the right direction as far as the policy is concerned, and today's event is actually going to encourage a large ecosystem to participate in this movement. But the challenges are humongous. He spoke about 12,000 ITIs. We need to look at aligning the curriculum with industry, with the job roles and qualification packs. We need to look at providing industrial training and exposure to the trainers and instructors in those ITIs. If we just look at the case of ITIs, we would have probably about 80,000, 90,000 plus instructors in ITIs itself. The issue of workshops, facilities, the issue of putting into place a whole apprenticeship movement through the act which got amended in 2014 and connecting them with the industry. I think if we just take that one piece, there's a humongous need. And then when we get into industry, how do we ensure that industry provides differential salaries to people who have been certified through the sector skill councils. That's another key aspect. And from a long-term direction, I think one of the things which one needs to put more emphasis is to mainstream skilling in the traditional education systems of the schools and higher education. And that's what would lead to a long-term solution to the whole issue of making our youth employable. So a combination of education through schools, higher eds, ITIs, polytechnics, engineering colleges, as well as the private vocational training providers for the short-term courses. That combination would really be a crucial thing. And lastly, the vocational trainers. We just don't have any methods, systemic methods for training our trainers for skill development initiatives, for the VTPs,
Right.
for the schools, for the colleges, for ITIs. I think that's a huge infrastructure needed in India.
Okay, Anindya Mallick, coming back to you. The point really about India's workforce can be sort of summarized in the following manner, and tell me if you agree with it or not. That when you are in India, with whatever schooling that you may have received, you are only as good as the system allows you to be. When the same people go overseas, when they get into all manner of jobs overseas, let's say the United States or United Kingdom, and I'm not just talking about the top tier IIT, IIM graduate level people, but even people below that rung, they do incredibly well, and you never get to hear about their lack of training or their lack of application or their lack of professionalism. Would you agree with the fact that more than just the numbers, it is a systemic issue in India, that the system is such that people just get swamped, and all the output or training that is happening so far cannot flourish because the environment is so biased against people? We have hierarchies, we have a government hiring system where skills don't matter after the day when you are hired into a job. We have private sector companies where pressures on margins mean that the best people keep getting promoted, others get left behind. Is this the right way to think about this situation at all?
Yeah, to answer your point, actually the environment does matter, and if you see the way our school and college curriculums are, they have not been updated and modernized to the extent that is required. And even when we look at the vocational training that we have, industry inputs do not go there. So anyone coming out of the vocational training system are deemed not really employable, and industries need to take out time and effort to train these people to bring them up to their standards. So definitely there is a requirement of ensuring that there is a proper system where industry inputs are there going into the course curriculum of all our vocational training centers, so that the industry, whoever comes out certified out of these vocational training centers, are readily absorbed by the industry, and I'm sure that for the time and cost that is saved, the industry will be willing to pay a premium for that. And when you talk about other countries, that is exactly what has been happening, that there is a coordination and collaboration between academia and industry, so that whoever comes out of the academic environment is job ready and can readily be employed to do the job they are hired for.
Okay, in terms of the scale of what is being outlined right now, and we've sort of heard and known this story as it has been built up over the last year plus. Put it together for us as far as the key challenges that are concerned. Anindya, if you can, in terms of the scale of the exercise from an investment perspective and from an execution perspective, and I'll then ask Mr. Goel to answer the same very question.
Okay, so from the training, around 40 crores or 400 million people by 2022 definitely is a large target that we are looking at, and to get the environment system ready for implementation will take a lot of investment, not only in getting the
Anindya,
training
just hold on.
centers, but
Hold on to that thought, because what is now visible on our TV screen is some nice logo work, blue ink on a white background. But I guess if you look at what is being shown, this is perhaps the imagery and the icons that Prime Minister Modi himself believes in a lot. He's one of India's most visually friendly politicians who understands the art of communicating through visuals rather than just words. And what we seem to be seeing is a short film of a new logo, of a design, and there you have it, with some nice background music, evoking the pencil and the spanner and Skill India with 3 arrows, with a computer screen and a laptop, a nice evocative visual of Skill India. So there you have it. The NDA government has just unveiled a new logo, which if political historians would want to look at very closely, they would perhaps see parallels in communist history, where comparisons might be drawn with a closed fist, which represents a worker, a pencil, which represents work at the higher levels, and a spanner, which is basically, I think, representative of the shop floor. And now the Prime Minister releasing what seems to be a booklet of the National Skill Development Council, and all ministers present on the dais, including the finance minister to the Prime Minister's right, the skills minister to his left, the railway minister, the health minister, Kaushal Bharat, Kushal Bharat. And I must say, I wish we had a graphic artist on our panel and try and get his thoughts on what he thinks of the logo. But that's the caption. Let us make India the skill capital of the world. More documents being unveiled by the Prime Minister as we speak. Yet another document that he's going to show us. Doordarshan not zooming in closely on the documents, but I guess it's again an official document which seems to put together many of the aspects of the various programs. And this is also one of the issues that many analysts have been grappling with, and hopefully some of that will get addressed. That is the multiplicity of messaging that has surrounded the skill development idea of the Prime Minister. We will still have different councils. We have sector-specific councils. We have a National Skill Development Council. We have industry-focused groups. And last week, when we spoke with people from the skill sector, including people who have deep experience in this, they seem to suggest that was all good. Let me come back to you, Anindya, with the question that I had asked you before I interrupted you. If you could continue and answer that before the Prime Minister comes up to the stage and delivers his speech.
Yeah. So to continue, actually, we were talking about the scale of the program. 400 million people, youth to be trained by 2022. So in order to do that, we have to ensure that we have the proper facilities, the faculty is there, course curriculum is aligned to what industry requires, so that the people who are trained are employable. So all of this, the ecosystem as such, the beginning has been made. We have NSDC, we have them funding various training centers and partners who have set up training centers across the country. Then they're not only using classroom training, but also using new technology, the ICT technology, in terms of virtual classrooms, studio classrooms, etc. So to reach out to the widest, to ensure widest possible reach across the country. So a lot of things are happening. The sector skill councils are there, so that they are the coordinators between industry and the skilling centers, so that the youth who comes out can be certified, the centers can be accredited, and of course the course curriculum is in line with what industry and the sector requires.
Okay.
And
Anindya, we'll continue this discussion. At this stage, let me welcome some other guests who are joining us from various locations on this Skill India mission discussion that we are having. P. Rajendran, ED and co-founder of NIIT, welcome to the show. We are also joined by Yagnesh Sangarkar, CFO of MT Educare, and again from Delhi, Raj Kumar Nehru, Associate Director of HR at Concentrix India. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. We already have Anindya Mallick and Ajay Goel with us. Let me now go across to Mr. Rajendran. Mr. Rajendran, I spoke with a colleague of yours last week when Bloomberg TV India began programming on the Skill India mission and several aspects that we discussed. And at that stage, we were really talking about how July 15th as the World Youth Skill Day was an appropriate time when all of these schemes that have been in the work for quite some time are being unveiled together. We have heard some more commentary today, including from the Skills Minister, talking about various targets and the involvement of central ministries and agencies. We also had S. Ramadorai talk about the need to develop an ecosystem. If I could ask you at this stage to quickly underline a couple of the big ticket priorities that you feel are necessary to actually ensure implementation of what is clearly a very laudable objective. Mr. Rajendran, over to you.
So I will touch on things which probably not everybody is talking about, and give an emphasis on one part, which is technology. So we have, for the skills initiative to succeed, we have to go all out across the country. And since we are talking about 400 million and 500 million people to be skilled up over the next many years, like till 2022, technology will play a great role. So on one side, we need the private people, the government people, the ministries, everybody to collaborate. But on the other side, I find, and I strongly believe, that we will have a dearth of good trainers. Now, I'm not talking about training in IT or training in a couple of things which we are doing, but there are a whole lot of service industry areas where it's necessary to have excellent trainers in order to get the skills up in the people who are receiving it. So, one initiative I think the government must take, and it's very easy for them to take, is encourage every university, whether it is private or government, to invest in technology so that they can give online or VSAT based education training, skills training, using one expert, but reach out to thousands and thousands of students across the country. And it should not be, the university should not restrict itself to the state to which it belongs, let's say state university or private or central. They must go out and go all the way, because 500 million is a big number.
Mr. Rajendran,
believe that it is achievable.
Good point. I'm stopping you here because I want to carry this specific point that you raised right now to another of our guests. Yagnesh, if I can come to you, the points that Mr. Rajendran mentioned, and clearly NIT has an old and long history as far as training is concerned in the technology space. The point that he made about the dearth of trainers, and I am tempted to ask you that, you know, largely in India, if a graduate degree virtually does not have value, it's only if you have a technical degree, and that too from the premium institutions, that you are considered qualified. We had Rajiv Pratap Rudy talk about how if there were matrimonial ads which said master chef or master plumber, and how that would give it social respectability. But the question that I want to ask you, in the age of Twitter, where 140 characters determine news, why is it, are we still stuck in the past as far as our curriculums are concerned? In other words, Is 3 years really the time where you want to become a graduate? Because remember, the Delhi University wanted to extend it to 4 years, and there was a backlash from people and students. What can be done to change curriculums? And do you see any sign of that happening as far as the government establishment is concerned? Because remember, education at the higher level is a completely controlled and regulated sector.
Yeah, well, thanks that you asked me this question. I completely, first of all, and by the way, thanks for having me on the show this afternoon. I would like to kind of supplement to what Mr. Rajendra just said. Technology intervention in all spheres have taken place to a large extent, but for education. So, if you really see, technology has not really caught up with education as much as they should have been. That includes, of course, curriculum changes as well to be delivered on the technology platform, which, today at MT Educare we are doing. Now, we've also been seeing this because we are now working closely with various ministries of the government, both at the central and at the state level, to impart education projects, including skill development. In fact, while most of us are still talking about skill development, we've gone ahead and kind of already executed some projects with the NSDC under the Ministry of Minority Affairs, which also works very closely with the NMDFC. And why I'm mentioning this is because it's probably relevant for this particular discussion, that we've already started doing skill development training to various spheres. A lot of beneficiaries who come from undergraduate kind of background, and they don't get graduated enough, and they need to be employed even before they become graduates. These are the compulsions of the middle class or the lower strata of the society. Now, this is very important so that they can get skill developed in such a way that before becoming a graduate, they can at least start earning their livelihood. This is very important. While it is important, of course, to change curriculums, which we are working also together. I mean, a lot of delivery of our coaching classes, we are working very closely with the Education Ministry, trying to see how content can be developed in a digital form. We have created products around that. And we are in this industry for the last 25 years, as you would know. So we are working very closely with various ministries to make these training modules happen. And when it comes to training, we have a very extensive kind of workshop training model, which kind of trains these trainers. So we are planning to do that same with the skill development opportunity as well. So we are already training almost like 10,000 beneficiaries right now as we speak under the skill development, under various skill areas like data entry operations, beauty and wellness. These are the areas which actually India will need going forward to make this dream happen really into a reality. As rightly said by the
Nehru,
minister,
Yagnesh, hold on to that thought. Yagnesh, just hold on to that thought. Let me bring in another guest who's been patiently waiting to speak on this matter. Raj Nehru, as someone with a technology background and from the technology industry, who has hired lots and lots of people in the IT technology space, break it down and make it simple for us. This is a country which has millions of people coming out of school or graduate schools, even universities and even engineering colleges. Yet there are surveys which suggest that not more than 10% of all engineering graduates every year are able to find what you would call jobs that perhaps match up with at least the paper certificate that they have in terms of an engineering degree. Their salary levels at times are even lower than what someone who is just a plain graduate draws in the BPO space, for instance. What is the biggest challenge that you see as a practitioner and as someone who has hired and perhaps fired many hundreds of people? Raj Nehru.
Thank you, Siddharth, for asking me this question. See, we talked about the issue of people and their skills. And when we look at the industry today, there are many data points to indicate the challenge that we are facing. Every year, more than 5.5 million students graduate from the college. And if we look at the data, only 0.7 million are able to find job. And when we look at this, it gives you a very insightful information that the skills that are being taught in the colleges are not in alignment to the expectations and the demand of the business. So the skills that are being taught or the education that is being provided do not make them job ready in the market.
So
that is
why,
one
Raj
of the
Nehru,
biggest challenges
why is it that the HRD ministry does not change or insist upon changes to the graduate curriculum? Why insist on courses, languages over 3 years which do not make that graduate market ready at all? Why can't that be done at the graduate level? Like I believe if people have stopped reading essays and are happy with Twitter, why not do it at the graduate level?
You are absolutely right, Siddharth, that today, I give an example. If today you have a graduate student going through a 3 years or a 4 years graduation in the college, if he is not provided an additional course in the last year or in the intermittent year before he completes his graduation, by the time he finishes the current state of graduation, he doesn't become eligible for any kind of opportunity in the market. Now today, employer has to hire him and then put him through a training. I'll give an example. Many of the industry, specifically in the IT, BAES domain, if you have to hire one person, you go through the interviewing more than 25 to 30 candidates, and the demand is so quick, the demand is so fast that if you are not able to fill that, it's a loss of revenue to the business. So it is important that in the college level today, that the skills that are being taught are industry aligned. Unless that is done, we may continue producing graduates, we may not be producing them job ready candidates.
Mr. Rajendran, you have heard various people on this panel express their views. I come back to you about the relevance of teaching and schooling, and I can tell you that we have had so many examples that one has heard and written about institutions like yours. People who came to you and paid a certain amount of time actually became immediately employable. It just strikes me as a paradox that the government sector continues to produce all these graduates who have nowhere to go, while institutions like yours are able to make people job ready within 1 year. Is that a paradox that this government is seized off? Do all these schemes and all these yojnas give you any sense that perhaps will get addressed, if not in 5 years, but perhaps over 10 years? Mr. Rajendran.
Yeah, so thanks. You know, I'm a born optimist, and I continue to be so. When we started NIIT and when we decided, and we also came from IIT Delhi, we are engineers, etc. When we decided, after our understanding of our subjects, that you don't really need an engineer who has spent 4 years in mechanical, textile, or whatever to become a programmer. So we innovated and said there are so many of the ordinary graduates, as somebody mentioned, who are going to the college and they don't know what they will do after that. So we said, why don't we create a dual qualification? They are going to college, they are maybe learning commerce or even English literature. On the side, if I can teach them, or they can come and learn technology hands-on with some internships and stuff like that. So when they graduate, they have the stamp of the university as a degree holder,
right, and
they have a usable skill to get started. Now that worked, and I want to put it in context. When we said that, you know, somebody mentioned that every company expects a person to come, would love to have a person who comes and starts working first day itself, because then he generates revenue day one. But I really want to ask, this is an ideal dream. When has it happened? So when I graduated in 74, 75, 76, the big jobs were graduate engineer trainees of Bharat Heavy Electricals or Larsen & Toubro or Tatas. So those institutions had a mechanism by which a 1-year program is there, not necessarily because you are not skilled. So I'm an electrical engineer, I know that I can go and change wires and test a panel. But that's not what they want. They want an institutional person. They want me to be trained in different parts of their company because they're building me up for a long career in the company. So that made the difference those days between the electrician and the engineer. Because electrician has to be trained so that he can do today's job, get started as the machines change.
Mr. Rajendran, if I could, that prompts me to ask you another simplistic question. Sir, that prompts me to ask you another simplistic question, and please bear with me. On one hand, there are protests, and it becomes a political issue if the government were to raise the fee structure for a graduate degree from any college, whether it is, mostly fully funded by the government. Yet, students are willing to pay significant amount of money with institutions, including institutions like yours, to get tooled. Is there a disconnect at the level of the people themselves, at the level of parents and students themselves? They expect the government to give them a piece of paper, but then they are willing to pay money to companies, to private companies, to get training. Why is this a disconnect? Is this a valid point that I raise, sir?
Well, partly yes, because that's how you see it from outside. But look at IIT, that's also government. IIM, in a sense, it's government. And you're willing to pay whatever it takes. Now roll back, go to a class C or a class D town or a large panchayat. For the kids who have gone through the government schools where education has been free, it's government's social responsibility to somehow get the kids into the school. Midday meal scheme is there. They're encouraged to learn. Some of them take off, get into the university and learn and do PhDs. But many of them, when they come out, and we have been trying to mobilize them for skilling with our NSDC joint venture, what you find is that they find it difficult to think of why should I be paying 2,000, 5,000 rupees to get a skill, because all my life I have learned without paying. It's very difficult to switch them to believe that they need those skills. I'm not talking about the urban population, because they have to move very, very fast. So coming back to your question, you can go and ask sometimes an auto rickshaw wala, where would he ideally want to send his kids? And he will say, I want to send them to a private school. Now, somewhere some perceptions have happened that if you go to government schools, you don't get good learning, even if it is free. So I don't mind paying more and go to a private school. I would tend to believe that it's wrong to generalize it.
Okay.
When I came out of school in '74, there were 3 people in the merit list who were from the government schools in Delhi, and we used to hold in high esteem some named government schools as the schools from where there'll be competition in sports, there'll be competition in debates. Everything.
Point taken.
So I think that part, has it eroded, not eroded? Can I make a generalized statement? Definitely not.
Okay.
It is different in Tamil Nadu, it may be different in Delhi.
Okay.
But like I said, that this initiative fundamentally has brought skills into the main stage.
Okay. It's brought the skills. It's brought the skill.
I need to complete this sentence. Let me complete this sentence.
Please, sir, go ahead.
Over last 30 years, as startups, we reached somewhere where we have probably trained about 35, 40 million. That's about 3.5, 4 crores. So, which is nothing. It's a drop in the ocean. So when the government says that we would like to do, 500 million people in 2020, according to me, it's highly doable.
Okay.
And with the Prime Minister, today I thank the Prime Minister and I would like to show my gratitude of bringing the skills into the center stage. And now when the NGOs and the people who send kids to schools and colleges and the government machinery and the people who had to hire all these kids, they work in unison, there's no reason to believe that we'll not be able to do. Except government makes policy, rest of the people don't believe in what the government has done. Then of course that divide will not ensure that we reach the targets.
Hopefully that's a divide that will reduce, if not go away completely. Good points there. Let me update our viewers on what is happening. There are awards that are being handed out by the Prime Minister. He is now going back to take his seat on the dais. perhaps about to speak unless there are more specific programs that are coming up. We can see some other promo material running there. I just noticed a World Skill Council. So while we wait for the Prime Minister to come back, let me go back to Raj Nehru. He had a point to make, and I would also request all our other guests, if they want to come in as we open up the floor to further discuss this point. First to you, Raj, then to my other guests. Make your point quickly, please.
Yeah, thank you. So Siddharth, see, every year this country is hiring more than 12.5 million people, and the latest data I was looking at is only 1/3 of the students who qualify for job, who get into the job market, qualify the employment skills which are set by the employers, which is also indicating that the kind of education they pass through when they come out of the college is not aligned with what today employers are expecting. So we have age-old curriculum which needs to have a revamp. The second thing is the challenge that today this government has to handle, and I'm sure they are working on that, is the available of credible data. Today, if you look at the effectiveness, whatever programs are being offered and how they are impacting and resulting into the outcome in the form of employment to the students who are going to skilling, we don't have that credible data. Whatever data you have, it indicates even the people who are completing those skilling programs, they are not getting. Like this year, I was looking at the skill target that government had kept for itself was around some 10.5 million students to be trained, out of which only some 7 million they had, 7.5 million they have trained, but only 2.5 million have got the employment in the country.
Okay.
So this alignment and then the availability of right information data, this is very important for government to know whether these programs, whatever changes they are making, are they effectively being leveraged in the system. So right. I think this is another area that government has to look besides digitization and reaching to villages.
Oh, okay. Yagnesh, you wanted to make a point very quickly, please, because I can see the Finance Minister also about to start speaking. Yagnesh.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I just wanted to mention about certain things that are already happening. It's not that the skill development is a new area. A lot of good work is happening right now. So, for example, under the Ministry of Minority Affairs, there's an academy called Maulana Azad National Academy of Skills, which is Manas. They are doing some wonderful work on skill development.
Okay.
We are working very closely with that academy as well.
Okay.
So, I mean, I take that point from all the speakers that it's a big area.
Okay.
And we need to really start executing.
Hold on, Yagnesh. Let's cut across to what the Finance Minister is saying.
Been a witness to many such opportunities which we are creating for India. Months ago, when the Prime Minister launched the Financial Inclusion Scheme, little did we realize that in a period of almost 4 months, 160 million people will get connected to the Indian banking system. Thereafter, when the Prime Minister launched the social security schemes in a country which is underinsured and underpensioned, in almost 35 to 40 days, we had 110 million people being added to the social security network. The Swachh Bharat has invited a huge response, and more than a governmental program, it has almost become a mass movement in India, which the people of India themselves have adopted. The Make in India initiative, the Digital India initiative, the Mudra as an agency for funding the unfunded are all historic initiatives which we have seen in the past few months at this same venue in order to rejuvenate the Indian economy. Sir, we took over 14 months ago in somewhat a somber and a depressive environment. And when we look back, we see a huge change. And the initiative that you are launching today of Skilling India is going to add to that huge change. It's a hard reality that India has surplus manpower. The global population is not increasing. Most developed countries in the world, in fact, their replacement figure for 2 people is much less than 2. It ranges between 1.2 to 1.6, depending from country to country. The world, therefore, would be woefully short of manpower. India has surplus manpower. That's the whole demographic differential which is taking place. Do we now treat this surplus manpower and an excess population as a burden or a liability on Indian economy, or do we convert it into a resource? Till today, there has been no structured approach in this direction. Some initiatives have started in the last few years, about which references have been made just now. And to convert this now in a mass activity, we have to outline the vision that you are going to place before the country today, that we train in these various vocations hundreds and lakhs of people who now can not only become self-sufficient, but for whom work becomes dignity. We foresee now, even in somewhat a global environment where global growths are modest, India standing out as a relative bright spot. Our services sector is almost going to touch a double-digit growth. Hopefully, with the kind of initiatives that we are pumping into the economy, from infrastructure to smart cities, to a lot of initiatives in agriculture, our manufacturing sector going to pick up. India initiative is also going to pick up. From almost a flat manufacturing growth 14 months ago, signs of revival are almost visible. And it is each of these areas which will see the need for a huge amount of manpower. And this manpower needs to be trained in order to accomplish the challenges before the Indian economy. The opportunities for this manpower will be huge. It won't only be confined to the territorial boundaries of India, because cross-border movement of human resource is also a huge human resource, particularly when the world is short of this human resource. Higher education cannot be the prerogative of all. Basic, primary and secondary education is a right. And therefore, as a substitute to that higher education, which only few are privileged to receive, it is necessary to train this resource so as it becomes well equipped in order to manage the challenges before the economy as also the global economy. I remember, sir, when we were students in the 1970s, what the government is doing is to converge the entire energies of now providing that job-oriented training to people so that they can be equipped in order to face the challenges. The governments, both at the center and the states, have a huge responsibility in this regard. The industry has a huge responsibility. And besides the industry, I think the kind of change which has to come about in our educational institutions, who will have to substitute the usual degree courses with the skill development courses, and these courses have to have a multiplier effect in terms of literally increasing in thousands and lakhs of these institutions all over the country, that these young children today who've had the fortunate distinction of standing with the Honorable Prime Minister, tomorrow can become a talented pool of people who can become world beaters and who can ensure that India itself becomes a great global economic force. I have not the least doubt, sir, that with the economy recovering and picking up, with wages in our other competitive economies increasing hugely. Compared to the Indian economy, our opportunities are great, and when Make in India and the Skilling India will converge, no doubt we have a great future ahead of us. Let me congratulate Shri Rajiv Pratap Rudy, the Honourable Minister, Shri Sunil Arora, the Secretary, for having led this great initiative under your leadership. I have not the least doubt that we are going to see a much better and brighter India in days ahead of us. Thank you.